the man who didn't believe in love. Kunle had never believed in love, not because he had never seen it, but because life had taught him that love did not pay bills, pass exams, or change a man's destiny. He was a final-year student at a federal university in Nigeria, raised in a modest home where struggle was normal and success was fought for with sweat and sacrifice. His father had died early, leaving his mother to raise 3 children with a small trading business. From a young age, Kunle learned discipline, responsibility, and self-control. While other boys chased relationships and distractions, Kunle chased grades, skills, and opportunities. He believed love could wait, success could not. To him, relationships were emotional traps. He had watched friends lose focus because of heartbreak, unwanted pregnancies, and drama. He had promised himself he would not fall into the same cycle. He wanted to graduate with good grades, get a decent job, and change his family's story. That was why finishing his final exams meant everything to him. Years of sleepless nights, reading under candlelight during power outages, borrowing textbooks, and rejecting temptations had finally paid off. He was done. For the first time in years, Kunle allowed himself to breathe. That evening, his friends dragged him out. "Guy, you don't try. Just one night," they insisted. "Celebrate small." Kunle hesitated. Clubs were not his thing. Loud music, alcohol, careless decisions. It all went against the life he had built for himself. But something inside him whispered that one night wouldn't hurt. He agreed. What Kunle didn't know was that stepping into that club wasn't just a celebration. It was the doorway to a future he never planned for, a love he never believed in, and a lesson that would follow him for the rest of his life. That night, without knowing it, Kunle was about to meet the woman who would change everything. A night at the club. The club was already alive before Kunle stepped inside. Music thumped through the walls, heavy bass shaking the floor as colored lights danced wildly across sweating bodies. Laughter, shouting, and the clinking of bottles filled the air. It was the kind of place Kunle usually avoided. Too loud, too careless, too far from the disciplined world he had built for himself. He stood near the entrance for a moment, adjusting his shirt, wondering why he had even agreed to come. "This place no be you," one of his friends teased, nudging him. "Relax. Tonight, no reading, no thinking, just vibes." Kunle forced a small smile and followed them inside. As they found a table, waiters moved swiftly between crowds carrying trays of drinks. The smell of alcohol mixed with perfume and sweat hung thick in the air. Kunle ordered a drink, not because he wanted it, but because refusing would only draw attention. He took a sip. It burned his throat. Then, across the room, he saw her. Amaka. She stood near the bar, holding a glass tightly, laughing too loudly, her eyes shiny, not with joy, but with something broken. Her dress was simple, yet she carried herself with a quiet elegance that set her apart from the chaos around her. Kunle didn't know what drew him to her. It wasn't just her beauty. It was the sadness she was trying so hard to hide. Their eyes met briefly. She looked away first. Moments later, she raised her glass and took another long drink. Kunle felt an unfamiliar pull in his chest. The breaking point. The end came quietly. One evening, after yet another argument where he blamed her for his anger, Amaka packed a small bag and walked away. No shouting, no drama, just tears that refused to stop falling. She didn't tell her friends. She didn't tell her family. She just carried the pain alone. The nights were the hardest. Silence reminded her of everything she had lost: confidence, peace, trust. Sleep became difficult, and food lost its taste. That was when alcohol became her comfort. At first, it was just to help her sleep. Then it was to stop her thoughts. Before long, drinking felt easier than healing. The night she chose to forget. That was why she went to the club. Not for fun, not to meet anyone, but to drown the memories. Each drink numbed her heart a little more. The music helped her forget the voice of her ex-boyfriend that still echoed in her head. When she laughed, it was forced. When she danced, it was mechanical. She felt empty. And then she saw Kunle. There was something different about him. He wasn't loud or aggressive. He didn't treat her like an object. His eyes carried curiosity, not hunger. When he spoke to her, she felt seen, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Why she followed him. When Kunle offered to take her home, Amaka hesitated, not because she feared him, but because she feared herself. She knew she wasn't looking for love. She wasn't looking for commitment. She just wanted to feel something other than pain. So she followed him. Not because she planned a future, but because she was running from her past. She told herself it would mean nothing. Just one night. Just another memory to bury under alcohol and time. She didn't know that the man walking beside her would soon become part of her destiny, and that the pain she tried to escape would one day return in a form she never imagined. The night without promises. The ride to Kunle's place was quiet at first. The streets were almost empty, streetlights stretching long shadows across the road. Amaka sat by the window, her head resting against the glass, watching the city blur past. Kunle kept his eyes on the road, unsure of what to say, unsure of what he was doing. Neither of them spoke about expectations. Neither mentioned tomorrow. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was heavy, filled with unspoken thoughts and emotions neither was ready to face. When they arrived at Kunle's apartment, Amaka hesitated at the door. "This is okay," Kunle said gently. "If you want to go, I can take you back." She looked at him for a long moment, searching his face. Then she shook her head. "I'm fine." They stepped inside. Two broken moments collide. Inside the small apartment, the noise of the club felt far away. The quiet allowed thoughts to creep back in. Thoughts Amaka had been trying to silence all night. Kunle offered her water. She refused and reached instead for the bottle he had brought back from the club. He watched her drink, worry flickering briefly across his face, but he said nothing. They sat on opposite ends of the couch at first, talking softly about nothing important: school, life, random stories. The alcohol made everything feel lighter, slower, less controlled. One conversation led to another. Laughter slipped in between pauses. Their physical closeness grew naturally, without planning, without strategy. For Amaka, it wasn't about desire alone. It was about being held without judgment, touched without control. For Kunle, it wasn't about conquest. It was about connection, something unexpected and unfamiliar. That night, they found comfort in each other's presence. Not promises, not commitments, just two people trying to feel less alone. The morning after. Morning came quietly. Sunlight slipped through the curtains, casting a soft glow across the room. Kunle woke first and lay still, listening to Amaka's steady breathing beside him. He didn't feel regret, but he felt something else: curiosity. Amaka woke shortly after. Reality settled in slowly, bringing with it a familiar instinct: to prepare to leave before emotions could complicate things. She slipped out of bed and walked into the kitchen, a habit formed by pain. Amaka found herself moving automatically, washing her hands, reaching for ingredients, lighting the stove. It was muscle memory. In her last relationship, cooking breakfast had been a way to keep peace, to show care, to feel useful. Kunle watched from the doorway, surprised. "You don't have to do that," he said. She smiled faintly. "I know. I just like to." The smell of food filled the room, warm and familiar. Kunle sat at the table, watching her quietly. In that moment, something shifted inside him. This wasn't the behavior of someone careless or reckless. It was the act of someone conditioned to give, even when she expected nothing in return. And that scared him. A question unasked. As Amaka prepared to leave, slinging her bag over her shoulder, Kunle stopped her. "Wait." She turned, already prepared for goodbye. Instead, he asked, "Can I have your number?" She hesitated, then gave it to him. Without expectations, without hope. She walked out of his apartment, believing the night was over. Kunle watched the door close behind her, unaware that the simple choice to ask for her number had already changed the direction of his life. What was meant to be a night without promises had quietly planted the seed of something deeper, something neither of them was ready for yet. The unexpected call. Amaka stepped out into the morning sun, feeling lighter and heavier at the same time. Lighter because the night had given her a brief escape from pain. Heavier because reality always returned. As she boarded a bus back to her hostel, she told herself not to overthink what had happened. It was just one night. No attachments. No expectations. That was safer. She checked her phone. No messages. She exhaled, strangely relieved. A decision he couldn't ignore. Back in his apartment, Kunle sat alone, staring at his untouched breakfast plate. Something about Amaka refused to leave his thoughts. The way she cooked without being asked, the sadness hidden behind her laughter, the calmness she carried even while broken. He wasn't used to feeling unsettled. Kunle picked up his phone, stared at the number she had saved under Amaka club night, and hesitated. What if she thinks I'm just like the rest? What if calling complicates everything? But not calling felt worse. Before he could change his mind, he dialed. The phone rings. Amaka's phone rang as she walked toward her room. Unknown number. She almost ignored it. Then she answered. Hello. Hi. It's Kunle, he said, suddenly unsure of his confidence. There was a brief silence. Oh, she replied. Hi. I just wanted to check if you got home safely. She smiled faintly. No one had asked her that in a long time. Yes, I did. Thank you. They talked briefly, about nothing important, yet everything felt different. When the call ended, Amaka stared at her phone for a long moment. Maybe he'll call again, she thought. Then she shook her head. Don't hope. The second invitation. An hour later, her phone rang again. This time, she didn't hesitate. Do you want to meet later today? Kunle asked. Not like last night. Just to talk. Amaka hesitated. Why? She asked honestly. Kunle paused. Because I want to know you. Properly. Her heart skipped. No one had said that to her in a long time. Okay, she said quietly. A question that broke her. They met that evening at a quiet spot near campus. No loud music. No alcohol. Just the sound of birds and students passing by. Kunle studied her face carefully. Can I ask you something? He said. She nodded. What was a good girl like you doing in that club? Amaka looked away. The tears came suddenly, unexpected and heavy. She tried to stop them, but they refused. And for the first time, she told someone the truth. When walls come down. She spoke of the toxic relationship, the control, the words that cut deeper than blows. She spoke of alcohol and loneliness, of trying to forget instead of heal. Kunle listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't judge. When she finished, she wiped her face, embarrassed. I don't expect anything from you, she said quickly. I wasn't looking for a relationship. Kunle shook his head gently. I'm not here to use you, he said. And I don't see you as a mistake. Her chest tightened. That was the moment Amaka realized something dangerous was happening. She was beginning to feel safe. And safety, after pain, was terrifying. Love with conditions. Amaka didn't realize how deeply she had settled into Kunle's life until she started to miss him. Their meetings became frequent, sometimes planned, sometimes spontaneous. They talked for hours, walked around campus, shared meals, and laughed like people who had known each other for years. For the first time since her breakup, Amaka felt seen and respected. Kunle, on the other hand, found his carefully structured life shifting. He noticed himself waiting for her calls, thinking about her during quiet moments, wondering if she had eaten, if she was okay. It scared him. The truth he couldn't ignore. Despite the growing closeness, one thing bothered Kunle deeply. Amaka still drank. Not always, not openly, but enough for him to notice. Sometimes her breath carried the faint smell of alcohol. Sometimes her eyes were duller than usual. Sometimes she laughed too quickly. One evening, after watching her order another drink at a small roadside spot, Kunle finally spoke. Amaka, can I say something? She nodded, sensing the seriousness in his tone. I like you, he said carefully. I really do. But I can't pretend I don't see this. She looked away. The drinking, he continued. It's not healthy. And if we're going to be serious, it can't continue. The word serious hung in the air. Her promise. Amaka felt exposed. Alcohol had become her shield, her comfort. Letting it go meant facing emotions she wasn't ready for. But she also didn't want to lose Kunle. I'll try, she said quietly. I promise. Kunle nodded. That's all I'm asking. Effort. They didn't define the relationship that night. They didn't need to. They were already choosing each other. The happiest she'd been in years. With time, Amaka felt lighter. She laughed more genuinely. She drank less, at least in his presence. Being with Kunle gave her something alcohol never could. Peace. Friends noticed the change. You look happy, they told her. And she was. Kunle, too, felt fulfilled in ways he hadn't anticipated. For the first time, success didn't feel like the only thing that mattered. Sharing his life with someone felt meaningful. But beneath the happiness, a quiet truth lingered. Amaka hadn't fully let go of alcohol. She had only learned to hide it. A love still learning. Kunle believed in her promise. Amaka believed she could control it. Both of them were wrong, just not in the way they expected. Love had brought them together. But love alone would not be enough to erase a habit born from pain. And the test of that truth was approaching faster than either of them realized. Engagement and secrets. Less than 6 months after meeting Kunle, Amaka's life felt like a dream. Every morning, the sun rose with a soft warmth she had never noticed before. Every night, laughter came easily. Every word between them carried a sense of trust she had not allowed herself to feel in years. Kunle had proposed quietly, with a simple ring and a sincerity that left Amaka in tears. "I want us to build a life," he had said, his hands trembling slightly as he held hers. "And I want you with me, for everything." Her answer was immediate. "Yes," she whispered, her voice breaking with emotion. "Yes, I will marry you." Happiness with hidden shadows. To outsiders, Amaka was the picture of perfection, happy, calm, and glowing. Her friends envied her for the love she had found. But behind the smile, the secret lingered. Amaka had not fully stopped drinking. She had promised Kunle she would, especially after he had warned her about his seriousness. But old habits die hard, and for her, alcohol was more than a drink. It was a shield against her memories, a tool for comfort when anxiety crept in. She drank alone, quietly, believing no one would notice. The engagement celebration. The engagement ceremony was small, yet beautiful. Families gathered, offering prayers, blessings, and gifts. Kunle's family praised him for finding a woman with such composure and warmth. Amaka smiled and nodded, her heart heavy with guilt she could not voice. As guests danced and celebrated, she forced herself to appear carefree. Every laugh was measured, every step careful. She knew that one day, her secret could destroy everything. The beginning of change. After the celebration, Kunle and Amaka spent quiet evenings together, discussing their future. They talked about marriage plans, their dreams, and their eventual children. Kunle never suspected she still drank occasionally. He trusted her word because he believed in her, because he wanted to believe in them. Amaka wanted to believe too, but the shadows of her past lingered. Her heart was filled with love, yet her habits were quietly waiting to challenge the life she was building. A hint of what's to come. In those months, Amaka began to feel the stirrings of pregnancy. She was cautious, excited, and nervous. She didn't yet know how her past choices, especially alcohol, could ripple into the future. Kunle, unaware of her hidden struggles, continued planning a life with her, dreaming of their family, and imagining the happiness they would share. Neither of them knew that the coming months would test their love, patience, and trust in ways neither could have prepared for. Pregnancy and lies. A few months after the engagement, Amaka discovered she was pregnant. At first, she felt a rush of joy, a warm glow she hadn't experienced since childhood. She imagined Kunle's face when she told him, the happiness they would share, the small moments of anticipation as they prepared to become parents. But along with the joy came a sharp pang of fear. The promises she had made. Amaka remembered Kunle's words clearly. "Please, no more drinking. Not now. Not ever during pregnancy." She had nodded at the time, her heart pounding. "I've stopped," she had promised, meaning it most of the time. But old habits die slowly. Alcohol had been her refuge, her comfort, her secret way to cope with anxiety. Even though she loved Kunle deeply, she still found herself reaching for a drink when she was alone. She told herself it was just one sip, just enough to calm the nerves. But every sip was a lie she fed not just Kunle, but herself. The day she told him, the day she decided to tell Kunle, she felt a mix of nerves and excitement. "Kai," she said softly, her hands trembling as she placed her small belly against his chest. "I'm pregnant." Kunle's face lit up with joy. His hands cupped her face as he smiled. "Our baby?" he asked, voice shaking. "Yes," she whispered, tears forming. Then he pulled her closer, holding her as if the world could no longer touch them. "I'm so happy," he murmured. "But please, no more drinking. It's not good for the baby. I need you to promise me." "I promise," she said. "I've stopped." Kunle believed her. The secret continues. Weeks passed. Amaka tried to keep her promise. For Kunle, she controlled herself. But alone, when the world outside her room felt too loud, too overwhelming, she would pour herself a small drink. Each time, the guilt gnawed at her. Each time, she whispered to herself, just this once, just to calm the nerves. She convinced herself it wasn't a problem yet. But Kunle was unaware. The slap of truth. One afternoon, Kunle returned home earlier than expected. He found Amaka sitting alone in the living room, a small glass in her hand. The sunlight caught the liquid as it shimmered. He froze. "Amaka, is that?" he began, his voice low but trembling. She looked up, guilt flashing across her face, and nodded slightly. He didn't shout. He didn't curse. He slapped her, not out of anger, but shock, fear, and betrayal. Amaka didn't cry. She had expected it. She had known she was guilty. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with unsaid words and shared pain. The realization. A visit to the hospital revealed more tension. The skin showed she was carrying twins. Amaka's heart sank, knowing her drinking had endangered them. Kunle held her hand tightly, a mixture of fear and love in his eyes. "I warned you," he said softly, almost to himself. "I begged you." Amaka closed her eyes, feeling the weight of every decision she had made. The secrets, the lies, the small moments of selfishness, they had all led to this. And she knew, deep down, that nothing would ever be the same again. The delivery shock. The months that followed were tense. Amaka tried to hide her guilt, and Kunle did his best to stay patient. But the shadow of the alcohol during pregnancy hung between them. At the hospital, doctors monitored Amaka closely. She was 4 months along when the first skin showed twins. The excitement of carrying 2 babies should have brought joy, but instead, a quiet fear settled in her chest. The day of delivery. The day came. Amaka was nervous but hopeful. She had made it this far, and she wanted to see her babies for the first time. The doctor prepared her for delivery, explaining that complications were possible but manageable. Amaka nodded, silently bracing herself for whatever was to come. Kunle held her hand, his eyes full of both worry and love. The scan that changed everything. As the scan was done one last time, the doctor's face shifted. "Something is unusual," he said carefully, trying not to alarm them. Kunle leaned closer. "What is it?" The doctor's voice was calm but firm. "The twins, they've developed together as one body. This is very rare. We'll need to perform a cesarean section. Natural delivery isn't possible." Amaka's heart sank. She closed her eyes, wishing she could rewind time, wishing she had never taken that last drink. Kunle's hand squeezed hers tightly. He didn't speak, but his silence said it all. Shock, fear, anger, and sorrow. The operation. The surgery was tense and precise. Doctors worked quickly and carefully. Hours passed, and Amaka drifted in and out of consciousness, praying that her babies would survive. When the crying finally pierced the room, Amaka awoke fully. Her eyes filled with tears before she could even see the babies. The nurse gently placed the fragile bundle into Kunle's arms. The shock of reality. Kunle's breath caught. His eyes widened in disbelief. It was a tiny girl, but she had 2 heads. The doctor explained gently but firmly. "This condition is extremely rare and likely caused by alcohol exposure during pregnancy. She's a miracle, but her development was affected." Amaka's tears fell freely. She had imagined holding her children, dreaming of their faces, their laughter, but she had never imagined this. Kunle held her hand again. His voice was low, steady, but carried the weight of his heartbreak. This is the consequence," he said. "We both wanted a family, but this could have been prevented." Amaka nodded, unable to speak. Guilt and sorrow overwhelmed her. She had wanted to hide, to escape, but now there was no escape from the truth. A silent promise. Kunle looked at her, his eyes softening despite the anger and sadness. "We'll take care of her," he whispered. "But you need to change. No more lies. No more alcohol. You have to promise me that." Amaka could only nod. She had learned the hard way. The weight of her choices could not be ignored. In that room, holding their rare and fragile daughter, both of them understood. Life had changed forever, and they could no longer take each other or their children for granted. Consequences and separation. After Amaka recovered from the cesarean section, the reality of their situation settled like a heavy weight on both Kunle and her. Their daughter was alive, but fragile, and Amaka could not escape the knowledge that her choices, her alcohol use during pregnancy, had caused the complication. Kunle, too, was overwhelmed. He loved Amaka, but he could not ignore the truth. The confrontation. A few days after returning home from the hospital, Kunle sat Amaka down. Their daughter rested safely in her bassinet nearby. "Amaka," he began carefully, "I love you. I really do. But this cannot happen again. You promised me you'd stop drinking. You didn't. And now," he gestured toward their daughter, tears in his eyes. "Look what happened. This is serious." Amaka lowered her gaze. She could not meet his eyes. Shame and guilt consumed her. "I know," she whispered. "I was wrong. I didn't mean. I didn't think." "Thought what?" Kunle interrupted, his voice soft but firm. "That a little drink wouldn't matter?" that it wouldn't cost our child's health. Amaka shook her head, tears falling freely. The hardest decision. Kunle took a deep breath. He wanted to be fair, to forgive, but he also wanted her to face the consequences of her actions. I can't watch this happen again, he said. I cannot have you or our child at risk. You need to leave, Amaka. You need to get help. When you're ready, when you're clean, then we can talk. Amaka's heart broke. The thought of leaving Kunle, leaving her daughter, was unbearable. But deep down, she knew he was right. I understand, she whispered, her voice trembling. I deserve this. Leaving with a heavy heart. Amaka packed her things quietly. Kunle helped her with her bags, his hands gentle but firm. He handed her a small envelope for their daughter's needs. Take care of her, he said softly. I will do my part, but you need to do yours too. She nodded, choking back sobs. She carried her daughter, fragile and small, and stepped out into the world alone, guilt and shame heavy in her chest. For the first time, Amaka truly understood the weight of her actions. Every sip she had taken, every lie she had told, had consequences. 3 months of reflection. For the next 3 months, Amaka lived quietly with her daughter. She rented a small apartment and began to confront her addiction. Every day, she faced the reality of what her choices had cost. She cried. She reflected. She tried to forgive herself, though it was difficult. And all the while, Kunle did not forget them. He checked in occasionally, ensuring their daughter's needs were met, but he left the healing to Amaka. It was a period of quiet reckoning, a time when she realized that love alone could not fix mistakes. Only responsibility, effort, and change could. Redemption and return. 3 months had passed since Amaka had left Kunle's home. During that time, she had faced her addiction head-on. She confronted the cravings, the memories, and the habits that had led her to destroy trust. It was painful, lonely, and exhausting, but with every day that passed, she felt herself growing stronger. Her daughter, fragile yet resilient, became her anchor. Each smile, each tiny coo reminded Amaka of why she had to change. The call she didn't expect. One afternoon, as Amaka prepared a simple meal for her daughter, her phone rang. The caller ID read Kunle. Her heart skipped a beat. Hello? She asked cautiously. Amaka, Kunle said gently. I've been thinking, and I want you to come back. I want us to try together. I've arranged help, professional help, for you, for us, for the baby. But I want you to be ready. Amaka froze. A mix of hope and fear swirled inside her. Are you sure? She whispered. I am, he said. I still love you. I never stopped. A therapist and a plan. Kunle arranged for a therapist to guide Amaka through the recovery process. It was not about punishment. It was about healing. The sessions were intense. Amaka faced the reasons she had relied on alcohol, the pain she had buried, and the habits that had almost cost her family everything. With each session, with each step, she felt more capable, more in control, and more confident that she could finally reclaim her life. Kunle stayed by her side, patient and supportive, never pressuring her, but always encouraging her. Rebuilding trust. Returning to Kunle's home was not easy. Memories of her mistakes haunted every corner, every room. But Kunle's presence was steady. His eyes were gentle, his words kind, and his hands always offered support rather than judgment. Slowly, trust began to rebuild. Amaka learned to rely on herself, to be honest about her struggles, and to embrace her love for Kunle without fear or shame. A family healed. Months passed. Amaka had fully embraced sobriety. She bonded deeply with her daughter, nurturing her with love, care, and attention. Kunle marveled at the transformation, not just in Amaka, but in the family they were rebuilding together. They laughed together, cooked together, and shared quiet evenings full of warmth. Their daughter, though unique in appearance, thrived with both parents' love. The lesson of love and responsibility. Amaka learned a powerful truth. Love is not just about emotion. It is about responsibility, sacrifice, and effort. Mistakes can happen, but facing them with courage and honesty can heal even the deepest wounds. Kunle and Amaka's journey was far from perfect, but it was real. And in their imperfection, they found strength, forgiveness, and a love deeper than either had ever known. Together, they embraced the present, prepared for the future, and vowed to never take each other, or life, for granted again. Life with their daughter. Life had changed for Amaka and Kunle, but it had also found a new rhythm. Their daughter, a tiny miracle with 2 heads, required constant care, attention, and patience. Amaka woke early each morning to feed her, checking her temperature, adjusting blankets, and ensuring she was comfortable. Kunle, now more than just a supportive husband, learned the art of gentle care, lifting their daughter carefully, talking to her in soft, soothing tones, and sharing in the smallest joys of parenthood. The daily challenges. Every day brought new challenges. Feeding took longer than usual, with each head needing attention. Bathing was a delicate process, requiring both parents to work together. Medical appointments were frequent. Doctors monitored every heartbeat, every breath, and every development. Yet, through every challenge, Amaka and Kunle discovered teamwork. Kunle would prepare meals or clean the apartment while Amaka bathed their daughter. Sometimes they would laugh at the small mishaps, like spilling water or tangled hair, finding joy even in difficulty. Emotional growth. For Amaka, motherhood became her anchor. She realized that the guilt and shame from her past could not define her future. Every coo, every smile, every tiny hand grasping hers reminded her that she had a responsibility greater than herself. Kunle, in turn, discovered a tenderness he had never known. Watching Amaka nurture their child softened his discipline-hardened heart. He learned patience, understanding, and the importance of presence over perfection. The power of teamwork. The couple developed a system to care for their daughter. Mornings were Amaka's time, afternoons Kunle's. Evenings were shared, a time for both to bond with their child, tell her stories, and laugh at the absurdities of parenting. They realized that raising a child with unique needs demanded more than love. It required strategy, communication, and unwavering support. Small victories and joy. Over time, their daughter reached small milestones. A smile, a response to sound, the way she reached out to them. Each was celebrated as a victory. They documented every moment, creating a scrapbook of memories that reminded them of the strength and resilience of their little family. Even mundane moments, like feeding her porridge or rocking her to sleep, became treasured rituals. Kunle and Amaka laughed together at small mistakes, comforted each other after stressful days, and shared the wonder of watching a life grow in their care. Reflections on love and family. Amaka often reflected on how far she had come. She had once been lost in addiction and guilt, but now she was fully present as a mother. Kunle, too, reflected on the love that had grown stronger through trials. Together, they had created a family not defined by imperfections or mistakes, but by resilience, care, and a love that had survived its greatest test. Their home was no longer just a place to live. It was a sanctuary, a classroom for learning patience, a laboratory for healing, and the heart of a family that had discovered its strength together. Facing societal judgment. Life outside their home was not always kind. People noticed their daughter. Her rare condition made her different, and whispers followed them wherever they went. Amaka often felt the weight of eyes on her back, strangers staring, murmuring, sometimes even pointing. Kunle noticed it too. Friends, co-workers, and casual acquaintances would ask questions with curious, sometimes judgmental, tones. The stares and whispers. Walking through the park, Amaka felt children's parents subtly pulling their kids closer, shielding them from what they considered strangeness. At the grocery store, people would glance at their daughter, then quickly look away as if embarrassed for the family. Amaka's first instinct was to shrink, to feel ashamed, to hide her daughter. She wanted to escape the judgment, believing she was partly responsible for her child's condition. Kunle noticed the tension in her shoulders. He stopped walking, held her hands firmly, and said, "Amaka, look at me. Let them talk. It doesn't matter. What matters is that she is loved and safe. Nothing else." Amaka nodded, but the sting of society's judgment lingered. Defending their family. The couple faced more than just stares. Some people made rude comments or asked intrusive questions, attempting to understand why their child looked different. At first, Amaka felt a surge of anger and hurt, but Kunle remained calm. "Every child is a gift," he told her. "We don't need anyone's approval to love her or care for her." Together, they learned to respond firmly and kindly, educating people when necessary, ignoring ignorance when it was unchangeable, and always presenting a united front. Empowering their daughter. Kunle and Amaka decided early that they would raise their daughter to be confident in herself, no matter what others said. They taught her to smile proudly, to walk tall, and to respond with courage. She is perfect as she is, Kunle said one evening as they tucked her into bed. Never let anyone make you feel less than who you are. Amaka added, and remember, love begins at home. That love is stronger than anything anyone outside can say. Their daughter began to respond to their confidence, showing signs of resilience, curiosity, and self-assurance at a very young age. The strength of their family. Facing societal judgment strengthened Kunle and Amaka's bond. They realized that love was not enough. It required courage, patience, and a united front against prejudice. Every whisper, every stare, every rude comment became a reminder of their strength. They were not perfect, but they were committed. And the love in their home, the laughter, and the care they shared with their daughter became their shield against the world's ignorance. Looking toward the future. In the face of society's judgment, Amaka and Kunle found clarity. They would teach their daughter to thrive despite challenges, to embrace her uniqueness, and to understand that the world's opinions did not define her value. Together, they created a family culture of resilience, love, and empowerment, preparing their daughter not only to survive but to flourish. Strengthening family bonds. Life was no longer about surviving crises. It was about thriving together. Amaka and Kunle had learned to navigate challenges, face societal judgment, and care for their daughter. Now, their focus turned to building a family life filled with love, laughter, and understanding. The daily rituals. Every morning, Kunle would wake early to make breakfast while Amaka fed their daughter. They shared small moments, pouring cereal, sharing coffee, talking about the day ahead. Afternoons were for school or therapy sessions, sometimes medical appointments. Yet even during busy days, they found time to check in with each other. A simple text, a short call, or a shared smile reminded them that they were partners in everything. Evenings became their sanctuary. They would cook together, tell stories, laugh at minor mistakes, and enjoy quiet conversations about dreams, hopes, and fears. Laughing together again. One evening, while helping their daughter play with blocks, Amaka knocked over a small tower of toys. Kunle laughed. Are you trying to teach her gravity? Amaka chuckled. I'm just helping her learn patience. They laughed together, the tension and fear of the past months fading. Their laughter became a reminder that joy could coexist with responsibility, and that love could grow stronger through hardships. Reconnecting as partners. Through shared responsibilities, they began to reconnect as more than just co-parents. Kunle would occasionally surprise Amaka with small gestures, her favorite snacks, flowers, or quiet evenings just for the two of them. Amaka, in turn, made sure Kunle felt appreciated, writing little notes, cooking his favorite meals, and ensuring he had time to relax after long days. Their relationship deepened, not with grand gestures or declarations, but through consistent care, understanding, and mutual respect. Celebrating milestones. They celebrated their daughter's milestones together. First words, first steps, and small achievements became family victories. Each triumph reminded them of the resilience they had nurtured, not only in their daughter, but in themselves. Even minor challenges became opportunities for teamwork. They learned to communicate better, compromise when necessary, and lean on each other emotionally. The power of presence. Amaka realized that being fully present, attentive, and honest had become the foundation of their family. Kunle saw her strength, patience, and love as the true essence of partnership. Together, they understood that bonds were strengthened not just in times of crisis, but in the everyday acts of love, making breakfast, reading bedtime stories, laughing at small mistakes, and supporting each other silently during difficult moments. Looking forward, as they tucked their daughter into bed each night, Amaka and Kunle reflected on their journey. They had faced mistakes, consequences, and fear, but through it all, they had built something unshakable. Their home was now more than a shelter. It was a sanctuary of trust, resilience, and love. And for the first time in a long time, they both looked toward the future with hope, confidence, and the certainty that, together, they could face anything. Resolution and happiness. Years had passed since the storm that almost broke Amaka and Kunle's family. Through trials, mistakes, and redemption, they had emerged stronger, closer, and more united than ever. Their daughter thrived, healthy, curious, and full of life. Her rare condition no longer defined her, because love, care, and confidence had shaped her world. A family united, Amaka and Kunle had rebuilt not only their relationship, but their entire life together. Their home was filled with laughter, music, and the gentle rhythm of daily routines. Breakfasts together, evenings spent reading stories, and small acts of kindness had become their shared rituals. Every smile from their daughter, every milestone she reached, was a shared victory. Through patience, therapy, and unwavering support, they had learned that family was more than blood. It was presence, care, and shared growth. Love redefined. Kunle often reflected on how love had changed him. He had once believed that success and control were the most important things in life, but now he understood that love required patience, forgiveness, and trust. Amaka, too, had grown. She had faced her addiction, acknowledged her mistakes, and emerged resilient. She knew the power of honesty, effort, and responsibility in sustaining love. Together, they understood that true happiness did not come from avoiding mistakes. It came from facing them and choosing to grow from them. Looking back, moving forward, they sometimes spoke of the past, not to dwell, but to remind themselves how far they had come. The mistakes, the guilt, the judgment of others, all of it had shaped them into the family they were today. Their journey had been imperfect, but in imperfection, they had discovered strength, compassion, and a love that could withstand life's harshest tests. A home filled with hope. Their daughter grew surrounded by love, laughter, and care. She learned to embrace her uniqueness, to be confident in herself, and to value family above all else. Amaka and Kunle's love had matured into a partnership built on trust, respect, and shared responsibility. Together, they looked toward the future, ready to face whatever life brought, secure in the knowledge that they had each other, and that their love could overcome anything. The last word. In the end, their story was not defined by mistakes or misfortune, but by redemption, resilience, and the unwavering power of love. They had discovered the most important truth of all. Happiness is not the absence of hardship, but the presence of love, forgiveness, and family. And in their little home, with their daughter laughing nearby, Amaka and Kunle knew they were truly home, together at last.